Good afternoon. Good afternoon. Welcome to Point of View with Ms. Shirley Polk. It's a wonderful, wonderful day. This is June the 19th in the year 2025, and we are remembering and celebrating the emancipation of the slaves in Texas 2.5 years after the original emancipation went into effect. So that was June the 19th, 1865. And here we are in 2025. So where are we now? And that was my song. I wrote it, probably 20, 30, over 30 years ago. And I recorded it. Where are we now? And it's something to think about. So you can get that song and add it to your collection of songs. You can get it on YouTube, you can get it on Apple, you can get it on Amazon, you can get it on SoundCloud. That is my song. Where are we now? I've been blessed to compose and perform that song. God is so good to us. And today we have some wonderful, wonderful information to talk about. And I'm going to start with the changing nature of freedom from 1865 to the present. Then I have the a day of remembrance on Juneteenth, and I'm going to start with that. Then I have another article, the island city where Juneteenth was born. So I'm going to go here, Day of Remembrance, June 17th. And this now, instead of just being a Texas holiday, it is a national holiday. So it's celebrated all over the United States, but it is the Emancipation Day for Texans because we got the news 2.5 years later. And that's been 160 years ago since then. So there have been changes, there has been progress. So we're going to go over some of that today. And if you can think of like what you feel is a great change, please put that in the messages, okay? In the message box. Let me know what has happened in your life or things you can remember, your celebrations you had, and all of that you're having. Even though I'm in Dallas, Texas now, I grew up in Denison, Texas, and we celebrated also in my hometown in Clarksville, Texas. We celebrated from ever since I can remember. We have celebrated the 19th of June. We celebrated in Denison. And there would be hundreds of people. We would go out what we call the beach. It's a sunset, and we would celebrate all day long. We would take our food. We would cook out there. Sometimes our food was always prepared. We swim. We dance. We have a wonderful time enjoying our families and other families all day long. So we've been celebrating ever since I can remember Juneteenth. Oh yes, we have the 19th of June, and we had and I like the strawberry pops. We call it sometimes, I guess we call it red, the watermelon, the barbecue, potato salad, baked beans, you name it, hot links, wieners, we had it. We had a wonderful time celebrating. So share with me some of your times of celebration. Good afternoon, Lady Patsy. These are great memories. So I have some great sites here that I want to share. And this site that I'm going to share now is Angry Bear. It's an Angry Bear blog. The day of remembrance on June 17th, Juneteenth. And this was released this morning at 7:30 a.m. by Angry Bear. It's a blog, okay? Juneteenth became a federal holiday on June 17, 2021. And we know Miss Opal Lee is the one who initiated the drive to petition for it. And she said they took 1,500,000 signatures to uh, Congress. And then she said they were prepared to with another 1,500,000. That was, and then she got called to the White House and presented on the 17th. President Joe Biden signed it into law. And so she is labeled the grandmother of Juneteenth. And my daughter and I watched a presentation on the WFAA app today where she was being interviewed. And it is a wonderful, wonderful, wonderful interview. And then also today we've been watching, let's see, a history of the Zulu social uh, club in New Orleans. A King Like Me, I believe that's it, and it's just been released on Netflix. So it's the story of the Zulu King Like Me. So we've been watching some great stories today, and I'm breaking myself from just uh, saying that it's history because there's some stories by ladies, there's some stories by groups and everything. So I say it's his story, it's her story, it's our story, it's my story, it's their story. So his story, meaning male, doesn't cut it for every story. So I'm breaking myself from that. We've said it all our lives, but it's not always his story. It's my story, your story, her story. So I refer to them as stories. And we have so many stories. So I'm going to share this from the Angry Bear. President Joe Biden signed the Juneteenth National Independence Day Act into law. When Melinda Price thinks of Juneteenth, she thinks of hope, home, and heritage. A legal scholar at the University of Kentucky, Price is a fifth generation Texan whose great great grandmother was enslaved in southeast Texas. President Abraham Lincoln signed the Emancipation Proclamation in January 1863, a proclamation declaring more than 3 million enslaved people living in the Confederate States free. Still, it was not until Union soldiers arrived in Galveston, Texas on June 19, 1865, that the last enslaved U.S. populations were of their freedom informed of their freedom. And some people said that ended slavery, but that is not true. That is not true. It did not end it, but it did bring the news, and many people took advantage of that. But there was still some slavery going on. And just like Miss Opal Lee was saying today, there's still slavery going on. It might not be predominantly African American, but there's all kinds of slavery going on today. But I'm going to talk about Juneteenth, okay? So in 1863, President Abraham Lincoln signed the Emancipation Proclamation, and a proclamation declaring more than 3 million enslaved people living in the Confederate, and I know I'm repeating this, Confederate States free. Juneteenth commemorates that day. And so we go ahead to talk about Price's family was among those enslaved for more than 2 years after the proclamation. And I'm pretty sure all of us can tell that story in some form or another. Her mother's grandmother was her he was her first U.S. ancestor to be born emancipated, Price added. So she said, everyone in my family said that she was born 2 days after the slaves were set free from uh, on Juneteenth, and that was kind of the lore of how we understood emancipation and the distinction between being free and being not free. Millions, and they say black, and I have a problem calling us black because we are brown skinned people. And I'll stand on that. I'm brown, and most of you are brown too. And I know they say we are considered black, but I don't buy that, and I won't go along with it. But anyway, that's something else. Millions of Americans have long celebrated Juneteenth, and President Joe Biden signed legislation, which was in 2021, establishing it as a federal holiday. And we know Miss Opal Lee, she was talking about how she was coming from going to go from Texas to Washington, D.C., 2.5 miles at a time. And the mission was accomplished. Now, everybody that wants to celebrate Juneteenth with us here in Texas are celebrating because there is a national holiday. So, I just want to say a little bit about that. Oh, and I'm going to go ahead and go to these other that I have, and I want to do this about the emancipation. The beginning, I have one more. The island city where Juneteenth was born. And this is by Lynn Brown. And this was published about 5 hours ago. And it's from BBC, BBC.com, British Broadcasting Company. Okay, now this one right here, I like it, but the one that I'm going to do after this, you're going to really be interested in that also. So I'm going to do this. It's from the BBC. And you can watch it live if you go to the BBC network. The island city where Juneteenth was born. 160 years after word reached Galveston, Texas, that enslaved African Americans were now free, the city is honoring Juneteenth year round. On 19 June 1865, a Union general arrived in Galveston, Texas, then a remote barrier island still under Confederate control, and informed a group of enslaved African Americans that the Civil War had ended and they were now free. Although President Lincoln had signed the Emancipation Proclamation more than 2 years earlier, declaring all enslaved people in Confederate states henceforth shall be free, the policy had not been enforced in Texas due to its geographical distance and the minimal presence of Union troops. The residents, African American, reacted to news of their belated freedom with a mixture of shock, disbelief, and ultimately jubilation, because some it was hard for them to believe, hard for them. to believe. And just because it was announced then doesn't mean that everything, as they say, was hunky dory. Everything, as Sammy Davis Jr. would say, what do you say? Everything is hunky dory. And there's something that he would say too, but I'll get back to that. So these initial celebrations form the basis of what copacetic. That's what Sammy Davis Jr. said. Copacetic. Yeah. Okay. So these initial celebrations formed the basis of what eventually become a Texas state holiday in 1980. Now, I don't know what they're talking about in 1980, but we celebrated way, way, way before then. So some of these, we have to go through these, and that's why this is point of view, because you have to go with what you know. Even though these articles are good, but sometimes we have to tweak them because of our knowledge, okay? So where they got this information, I don't know, but it said became a Texas state holiday in 1980, and maybe it did, but we've been celebrating it all of my life and before then. And as African American Texans relocated across the country and brought their traditions with them, the event became a unified day of celebration in African American communities across the South. And even when people moved away from Texas, they continued the celebration, many of them. So, hey, so why not have everybody just join the party and we all celebrate our emancipation? All right? Because it is understood that this day is the Emancipation Day for the Texans, which was 1865, June 19th. That's when we got the news. So, despite the long grassroots history, Juneteenth only became the U.S.'s newest national holiday in 2021 when the U.S. President Joe Biden signed legislation formally recognizing June 19th as a national day of observance, known variously as uh, Juneteenth, a combination of the words June and 19th, Freedom Day, Emancipation Day, or Jubilee Day. It's now marked by parades, rallies, and cookouts in the cities across the U.S. And we did it. Oh, we've been doing it. And I'm still stressing that we've been doing it here in Texas ever since I can remember, okay? Cities such as Philadelphia, Atlanta, and Tulsa host some of the largest celebrations in the U.S., but in Galveston, where it all began, the island city is embracing its role as the birthplace of what has become a national celebration. This is wonderful, isn't it? We have a lot of special events leading up to and on the day of Juneteenth, said Mary Beth Bassett, Visit Galveston Senior Public Relations Manager. But what's more important is that you can come and realize the significance of Galveston as the birthplace of Juneteenth at any time of the year. That's wonderful. So this year, Galveston marks the 160th anniversary of the original announcement with a packed calendar of events alongside its annual parade, fireworks display, and community picnic. The city will host a reenactment of the reading of General Order Number 3, the proclamation that brought word of emancipation to Texas at Ashton Villa, a historic home built in 1859. And they say it is a church now. It is a church now. Beyond the main day, a series of talks, performances, and events kicked off on June 11th, and are running into July. So that's good for right now. And I was listening and watching the news early this morning. They said Miss Opal Lee would she did not lead the parade today because of the health issues she's having, but her granddaughter did. And so Fort Worth went on, and Dallas is celebrating. We're all celebrating. I'm celebrating. I am so glad that we are, we've come a long way. We still have a way to go. And if you heard my song, we've come a long way, but we still got a long way to go. How do you know what to do when you don't know what needs to be done? How do you know which way to go when you don't know where you're coming from? How do you know what to say when you don't know what's been said before? They say we've got a long way to go, but can you tell me? Can you tell me where are we now? We've come a long way. Yes, we have some ways to go, but we have made some progress by the grace of God. Thank you all for being here with me. I'm so happy that you're here with me. It's such a pleasure to have you here. Thank you so much. Hi, David Linson. Thank you for being with me also. And I will go now to the next article, which I'm really excited about. Really excited about the changing nature of freedom from 1865 to the present. And this was released in 2024. And this is Sutori, SUTORI.com. The Changing Nature of Freedom from 1865 to the Present. It's by Isabel Mealarp. And this, when the Emancipation Proclamation, then the Juneteenth celebration, and us being getting the news here in Texas, that started making a difference. That emancipation, that freedom started just breaking off, branching off into all areas of life, not just for us of African descent, but other freedoms stemmed from that. From 1865 to now, which was 2024, which was just a few months ago, freedom in the United States has evolved significantly, encompassing civil rights, social equality, and personal liberties. Literally, freedom was limited to white males with systemic barriers for women, African Americans, and other minority groups. So we're going to see how far we've become, okay? How far have we come from there? And we'll have some examples. And if you have something you want to add, please put it in the messages, and when I will reply to them. But this is so interesting. This is so interesting and so good for us. And there is a certificate here, abolishing slavery. And now this site, like I said, SUTORI.com. Okay, you can see the certificate. I'm going to see if I can share this certificate with you here. I think I can. Let's see here. Here goes. Let me get to that. When you do all the producing yourself, there it is. There it is. That's a certificate abolishing slavery. I'm going to go up so you can see it. There we go. And I did it. Oh, I'm like that lady on that commercial. I'm so proud of myself. Thank you all for being here. And if you know me, you know that I love doing these webcasts and I love humor, but I'm very serious about what I put out here. And I make sure I'm well versed and well studied on what I put out here. And if I do make some kind of do a mistake on something, I will make sure that I put the right thing out here. I'll come back and take care of it, okay? So let me go back and do go back to where I was because this is very interesting to me and I am so excited about sharing it. So Reconstruction era 1865 to 1877. So like I said, many freedoms stemmed from that. Okay, so from 1865 to 1877, from when we were emancipated, got the news, were emancipated, then here comes some more, I will say, forms of emancipation and freedom. There's a Reconstruction era, 1865 to 1877. Freedom meant the abolition of slavery and the beginning of civil rights for African Americans. White Southerners resisted changes, creating black codes. You hear that? Well, even though they said we were free, you hear this? While Southerners resisted changes, creating black codes to limit freedoms. Okay, white Southerners did that. The 13th Amendment in 1865 abolished slavery and opened paths to citizenship and rights. Then the next here, there are some amendments. The Civil War amendments, 1868 to 1870. The 14th and 15th Amendments expanded definitions of citizenship and voting rights. It increased political engagement of African Americans, formation of the Freedmen's Bureau, the formation of the Freedmen's Bureau to aid the transition to freedom. And then there's the implementation faced intense opposition from southern states. Jim Crow laws would later undermine these rights. We've all heard of the Jim Crow laws, okay? The 14th Amendment to the United States Constitution is a Reconstruction amendment that was adopted on July 9th, 1868, which states all people born or naturalized in the United States and subject to the jurisdiction thereof are citizens of the United States and of the state wherein they reside. The 15th Amendment to the United States Constitution prohibits the federal government and states from denying a citizen's right to vote based on race, color, or previous condition of servitude. It was ratified on February 3rd, 1870. That's 1870 as the final Reconstruction Amendment. And so we hear them talking about the 14th Amendment, the 15th Amendment. That's very crucial in this day and time, and we know why, don't we? We'll talk about that probably on the Mother's Board tomorrow, God willing, at 1 p.m. right here. Then we have Jim Crow laws in the late 19th century. Although legally free, African Americans face systemic discrimination. Jim Crow laws were state and local laws that enforced racial segregation in the United States from the 1880s to the 1960s. The purpose of these laws was to marginalize African Americans and recreate the race relations of the pre Civil War era. This led to black or colored people to have separate public access only for colored folk. Supreme Court rulings like Plessy versus Ferguson 1896 normalized segregation under separate but equal. Oh, yes. So the battle was not over. Or they say you might win the battle. The war was not over. I think the saying is you might win the battle, but you haven't won the war, something like that. So we still have some things to accomplish, but God willing, many more things will be accomplished. Then, oh, this is what I really like. I read about the Harlem Renaissance. Oh, I really like this. This was in the 1920s, talking about the Harlem Renaissance, a cultural assertion for African Americans seeking personal and artistic freedoms. These artistic freedoms include black writing, music, dance, art, fashion, theater, politics, and scholarship centered in Harlem, Manhattan, New York City, spanning the 1920s and the 1930s. And I read about the Harlem Renaissance, and I think I probably watched some videos on it and how oh my gosh, the class of the people and the society in the Harlem Renaissance and how they dressed and talking about the art and how we were thriving. So it's just a wonderful, wonderful, wonderful thing. And then there's the urban migration led to a flourishing black culture, arts, and political activism. Economic barriers and systemic racism limited participation in mainstream culture. And so the thing that I really talk about, if you've ever heard me before, and even if this is your first time, I believe that we can always create what we need to keep us strong and help us and build us up to celebrate each other. We don't have to mimic anybody else. We can celebrate ourselves. We are original. We are very intelligent. We are very gifted, talented people by the grace of God, and we can do anything we want to do without copying off of this one and that one and the other. But they had economic barriers, but look, they still did their thing back then. Economic barriers and systemic racism limited participation in mainstream culture, but that didn't stop it. That did not stop it. Then we go to the civil rights movement, which is from the 1950s to through the 1960s. The civil rights movement, social uh, movement in the United States between 1954 and 1968 aimed at abolishing the laws that allowed discriminating race, color, and voting rights. Meaning of freedom, a struggle for equality aiming to dismantle institutional racism. Then there's social conditions. Grassroots activism, including boycotts and marches, gained national attention and support. Then the next point here is boundaries. Violent opposition from segregationists and systemic injustices persisted. I mean, and they still persist today. And we know now, in this day and time, that there are acts and there are laws and there are different laws being struck down that they don't want uh, the freedoms. They're trying to take away so many freedoms from so many people by trying to pass laws. And what is this? The signing of the whatever is going on up there. But anyway, one thing about it, we are resilient, we are strong, we are brilliant minded people, as well as other ethnicities, and nothing can hold back people who are bonded together, speaking the same thing, believing the same thing, united. A house divided against itself cannot stand, but when that house is together, it can withstand anything because it's built on a sure foundation. Oh my goodness. Not on sand, but on the rock of unity. Now we go to the Voting Rights Act of 1965. The Voting Rights Act of 1965 was aimed to ensure the right to vote for all Americans. Ongoing activism revealed the barriers to voting, including literacy tests and poll taxes. State sanctioned discrimination remained a challenge, notably in the South. They did everything, still putting all kinds of stumbling blocks, blockades, everything they can, but we yet are thriving by the grace of God. And I say to anybody out there, whatever ethnicity you are, if you're facing discrimination, you're facing all this racism, all these negativisms and all of that, you can make it. And I know us being of African descent, and of course we're American Indian, we have so much mixed blood in us, in the Polk family, in the Butler family, and all of our ancestors. We're mixed so much, and we know you are too. But while we, as they say, if you have a certain amount, what is it, one fourth or one third. I don't know what it is, but anyway, I did know, but I'm not going to dwell on that. A drop, I'll say a drop of African blood in you, are classified as an African, okay? Or they call them Negroes or whatever. But anyway, there is so much we can do. So much we can do. We are strong, 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 strong people. The next is the women's liberation movement. I told you other things stemmed from the Emancipation Proclamation, which gave other people courage to do these things and march and get things a rolling. Women's Liberation Movement, 1960s to the 1980s. The Women's Liberation Movement, which was WLM acronym, was a political alignment of women and feminist intellectualism. And you know, we were right in there. Our women were right in there with the other races of women that were struggling and picketing and marching for equal rights for women, the right to vote, liberation, and all of that. It emerged in the late 1960s and continued until the 1980s, expanding the concept to include gender equality in various spheres. Economic changes and activism raised awareness about women's rights and freedoms. Continued societal norms and legislative barriers restricted women's rights. And we know that there have been some setbacks in this day and time, but don't give up. Don't give up. And here is from a movement, the LGBTQ plus rights movement, 1970s to present, meaning of freedom, an ongoing fight for sexual orientation and gender identity rights. It's all in here with all the rest of it. So I'm going to read this because it's a part of it all. People are struggling for rights, okay? Social conditions, society's increasing acceptance and visibility of LGBTQ plus individuals. Then the next point here is boundaries. Legal hurdles and societal stigma remained significant obstacles. There are obstacles all over the place. You hear me? Next, reproductive rights. Remember, these are all some of the changes, some of the fights we've had. And I thank you so much. Uh, Lady Patsy said, be the original person God had made you as we daily seek direction from the Lord. That is so true. That is so true, Lady Patsy. So true. Now we have the reproduction rights, and we know there have been changes made here in this present day, but they stemmed from the emancipation and all of that. And it set a chain reaction down through the years, okay? Reproductive rights, 1970s to present. Meaning, then the first bullet point here is meaning of freedom, the right to make autonomous decisions regarding one's body. Then the next is social conditions. Legislative changes and activism shaped reproductive health access. There are boundaries, is the next point. Ongoing legislative battles and the push for restrictions on reproductive health impact freedom. And so they have some quizzes here on this page too. So if you go to this page, which is sutori.com, sutori.com, current civil rights challenges, the 2020s. The concept of freedom faces new challenges in social justice realms. Movements like Black Lives Matter highlight ongoing inequality and discrimination. These movements are mostly legislative actions that seek to limit voting rights and address systemic racism. And we remember how that was formed and how that was born. The concept of economic freedom is next. And I said economic. Okay. The concept of economic freedom discusses the intersection of economic rights and individual freedoms. Economic disparities affect access to rights and services. Classism and discrimination create barriers to economic opportunities. And then they have a video here. So when you go to this site, you'll see these videos, and then they have a poll here. Do you believe that freedom of speech should protect hate speech? I don't know about that. I don't know about that. So, this next is the immigration and freedom in the 21st century. Meaning of freedom explores the right to migrate and seek asylum as part of human rights. Then there's the social conditions, the next point. Global movements and crisis create new conversations and immigration policy. And we know what's happening here with this immigration. My God, boundaries. Laws and political sentiment increasingly restrict these freedoms for certain groups, and we know we've seen it in action. We're seeing it every and hearing of it every day. And the thing is, some people say, well, at least it's not me. Hey, be careful and be watchful, and most of all, be prayerful. Pray to the true and living God that this does not come to our doors. It's already in the neighborhoods. And many people are caught up in this, and it's just a terrible, terrible happening. And I know that you could break down this and that and the other, but as a uh, blanket uh, discrimination, nobody is safe from it. So don't just pray for yourself, pray for everybody. We have to pray for everyone. The future of freedom, looking ahead. The concept of freedom is increasingly viewed through a global lens, acknowledging the different cultures and societies interpret freedom in varied ways. Youth activism is playing a pivotal role in redefining freedom for new generations as young activists advocate for issues like racial equality, gender rights, and climate justice. Their engagement is marked by the use of digital platforms to mobilize support, highlighting a shift towards a more inclusive understanding of freedom that prioritizes community well being and sustainability. Associates grapple with the consequences of environmental degradation and the surveillance implications of technology. The fight for freedom will increasingly involve advocating for rights that protect individuals' privacy, personal data, and a healthy planet. And we are now trying to keep our personal information out of the hands of those who don't supposed to have it. And it is a fight. And so the judges are upholding some of the appeals and everything. So hopefully they won't get all of our information. Okay? So this was their contributing authors are Amanda Gorman, Amanda Onion, uh, American Experience 2018, Civil Rights Era, and then there's a Christian Zapata in 2024, then From Slavery to Freedom 2024, National Museum of African American History and Culture. So there's so much here, and so I thank you for being here with me today. I wanted to talk about this and celebrate Juneteenth with you. And one thing I want to say is don't ever give up, don't ever give in. And I believe with all my heart that this, I know things God does, and He allows certain things to happen for certain reasons. And I believe that if we pray to Him in unison, pray the same prayer, have a pure mind, they said a family, and we are a family, whether people want to believe it or not. We here in the United States, we're in the world, we are a family. A family that prays together, stays together. And like I said earlier, a house divided against itself cannot stand. And that's what our problem is. There's too much division in this country. Too much division because evil is running rampant. People are confused. The Bible, the scriptures are being fulfilled every day. There are things that are going to happen that haven't happened yet, but then yet we are protected by the grace of God. And if we pray to God, God will hear our prayer. And we know that scripture that if everybody prays to God, if they stop their wicked ways, if they're on one accord, God will hear us. And but I know that all of this is for a season anyway. So it's going to come to an end, but make sure, like I do the best that I can. I leave the rest up to God, but I try to live the life that God is pleased with so that when the wrath does come, I won't be in it. And that's the way we have to pray. There's so many things happening. And sometimes, people feel hopeless, feel that they can't do anything about it. But one thing about it is in any situation, if you can't physically go there, prayer will always go there. It reaches the highest mountain, the depths of the sea. It reaches God's ears. It reaches his ears and he honors our prayers. The prayers of the righteous availeth much. And I believe that on into eternity. When I go up to see God and he says, well done, that's what I'm striving for. But while we're living down here, we must pray and we must want the best for our brothers and sisters. Pray for the best and make sure that we're living a life that's pleasing to God. I love you so much, and I thank you so much for being here with me. And tomorrow, God willing, it's the Mother's Board Inc. at 1 p.m. We talk about politics, sports, etc. So many things we talk about. I love you so much. Please enjoy the remainder of your day.